So thank you all for joining us for our next session. If you can't already tell, we're going to be sharing a little bit of insight from the Cambodian ecosystem, and we have a little Cambodian delegation down here at the front. Just as a quick introduction, so my name is Zoe, and I'm the co-founder of Raintree.
My name is Pinkie. I'm the community manager.
And this is our project. We actually are the first creative workspace in Cambodia that has a pretty diverse community. So everyone from individual entrepreneurs all the way up to MNCs and everything in between. How we participate in the tech sector specifically in a couple of ways. So firstly, we facilitate and engage a whole number of your standard kind of tech ecosystem events. So everything from hackathons, bar camps, inspirational panels, and all the usual sort of support programs that you would see in an ecosystem. The second way is we both partake individually in the tech sector in a couple of different ways. So myself in various sort of venture capital related roles, and also facilitating with Pinkie, doing some research very, very early in our ecosystem. We are particularly excited to be here and help facilitate ECHELON and E27 coming to Cambodia for the first time this year, so that finally, after a few years of ECHELON running, Cambodia can be represented. And we have a few Cambodian startups who will also be competing in the top 100 pitches as well. So if you're curious about Cambodia, there's a lot of us here, not just us on stage, so come talk to us later on this afternoon. So just so I can have a quick gauge of who's in the room, could I ask you please to put your hands up if you've been to Cambodia before? Okay, can I ask you to put your hands down if you've been only on holiday in Cambodia? So keep your hands up if you've worked in Cambodia before. Okay, so we only have a few people down the front here. So probably if you've been to Cambodia for holidays, your impressions are mostly centered around temples, Indiana Jones, maybe a little bit of Lara Croft. But in fact, we are a really, really fast-growing economy. So we've been growing 7% year on year, so pretty fast. And this is Phnom Penh, our capital city. What you may be even more surprised to know, though, is the ease of doing business in Cambodia is actually very, very comparable to our ASEAN partners, and if not, in some cases, more attractive. So first thing is around business registration. You can basically set up a business and be operating in under 2 weeks, completely compliantly, depending on, of course, the sector that you're in, providing it's not super, super regulated. You can also have a 100% foreign-owned entity. So obviously for people like me, it's really, really helpful to have a 100% foreign-owned entity, to be able to structure it in different ways across the region, and also across ASEAN. Lastly, when it comes to currency, we are a 90% dollarized economy. So what that means is not only are transactions in US dollars, but actually trade and your accounting are also in US dollars, which obviously gives a slightly different play when it comes to thinking about Forex and other sort of economic factors. You also may or may not have guessed, but I am not myself Cambodian. I've been in and out of the market now for about 10 years and managed to operate a business and kind of survive there professionally without speaking much Cambodian, which probably speaks more to my lack of language abilities, but actually also means that the urban levels of English in Cambodia are super, super high. Obviously, what that means as a technology company is when you're thinking about outsourcing, training, engaging with other partners, kind of within the sector, Anglophone obviously is really, really easy for those of us who obviously speak English. Equally, for when it comes to Chinese, we do have a local Khmer Chinese population who speak either Mandarin or Teochew mostly. But additionally, we've had a huge influx of Chinese investment, which is probably quite similar to other markets in the region, but it's really been pronounced in Cambodia. And as a result, Chinese-speaking sort of commerce language has been really, really prolific in the last maybe 2 to 3 years. So it's good news for Chinese speakers in the audience as well. So now let's look at connectivity, not just the economy. This may seem like a strange kind of image to pull up, but actually what might be surprising for some of you who haven't seen the market before is that 4G coverage is nationwide. That means every city in Cambodia effectively is 4G driven, in part thanks to a couple of particular mobile operators who are sitting here in the audience today. More than connectivity, though, what's really, really exciting, I think, for our market, and that's particularly pronounced, is that the speed of adoption of technology is super, super high. That's partly owing to our demographics. So 1 in 2 people that you will meet is under 25, which is a really, really strange kind of population demographic to deal with. When you couple that with mobile penetration, which is quoted at anywhere between 130% to 180% in some sources, what that means is that you see sort of young people taking on new technology, adopting products super, super fast and in ways that you might not have anticipated. It also means that Cambodia is in the top 10 in the world as far as mobile penetration is concerned, which for a third world economy might also be quite surprising.
But the opening of the digital connectivity floodgate has only been a recent phenomenon in Cambodia. As many of you might already be aware, Cambodia has only begun to rebuild the economy from scratch since 1960. So essentially, 1990s. So essentially, Cambodians' the whole economy is as young and as youthful as I am. We are not only going through a digital transformation, but we're also going through an economic transformation in parallel as well. So now that we have this digital floodgate wide open, we are witnessing a number of really interesting phenomena in terms of our own interaction with the internet and the opportunity that technology can bring. For example, in a recent survey, 37% of the respondents said that they've accessed the internet, but within the same survey respondent, 48% claim that they have accessed Facebook. So what this demonstrates is that in Cambodia, the notion of the internet is highly synonymous with Facebook. There's also a number of other really interesting examples. For example, many young Cambodians have access to a smartphone, but not a laptop or a desktop computer. So what this means is that for many of us, we access the internet for the first time or primarily through our mobile phones. This could also imply that these young people, many of us might not have access to the basic digital and computer literacy before they jump over to smartphone. In terms of a professional working environment, in terms of communication, we see a lot of people sending official document, a significantly large amount of file and data through unsecure messaging app rather than emails. In terms of commerce, a lot of businesses have a Facebook page, even some really big established business that run for 10 and 20 years, but they don't have a website. So what this means is that there's no search engine optimization, there's no indexing. In terms of content, as you can see from the screen, the top 10 Facebook pages in Cambodia are primarily news and politics, so new entertainment politics. So this goes to show that we have skipped the traditional media entirely, TV, radio, and newspaper, and went for a social media for our news consumption and entertainment consumption instead. Here's another example of how crazy we are about social media. Here's a small little shop, a fashion store called Little Fashion. They were established about a decade ago by a team of 4 sibling young Cambodians. Little Fashion was one of the stores in Cambodia to tap into social sellings. Guess how many followings they have? It's a whopping 1.5 million likes on Facebook in a country where the population is only 16 million, so that's roughly 10% of the entire nation's population. In terms of the Little Fashion's success, we can attribute their rapid growth to them being the first mover in social selling, but also the rapidly growing and rapidly adaptations of social media in Cambodia. Part of their success also owing to the fact that in Cambodia there's virtually no e-commerce.
So just to give you a sense of what this really means, so in Phnom Penh we have roughly 1.5 to 2 million people. These guys are only operating in one city right now, so that means they have reached, if all of these likes are actually in Phnom Penh, they've reached the entire market and the entire capital city of Phnom Penh just through Facebook.
So as a largely cash-based economy with a whopping 78% of the population unbanked, Cambodia is facing many challenges in terms of financial inclusion. You want to add something?
Yeah, just again, give you a bit of color into like how little sort of this the financial infrastructure is sort of also how many gaps there are in the financial infrastructure. Our largest coffee chain, who are a multi-million dollar business. They have 15 outlets across the country. They're probably, I would say, one of the top 3 consumer brands in the market. Certainly, if you ask any Cambodian on the street, they'll quote brown coffee as one of their biggest kind of consumer brands. They still do not accept credit cards. They still do not accept any kind of mobile payment. They've been operating for 5 years, and they have millions of likes on Facebook. So this is kind of the gap where we are between consumer behaviors and financial inclusion.
So overcoming these constraints require creativity and innovation. We believe that there's a lot of this massive, significant, untapped potential in Cambodia given its social and financial context. Innovation in Cambodia often lie in execution. I'd like to give you some example of some really interesting dynamic that we have witnessed in the current startup scene. Meet our traditional tuk-tuk. So this beast of a machine is very difficult to maintain and operate for the driver, but for us as user, it's also such a hassle to haggle. Navigation-wise also can be quite tricky because our drivers don't know how to read map, and they prefer to navigate using landmark instead. Meet our, what we call our Indian tuk-tuk, right? So So first come Pass Up, the company with the yellow tuk-tuk. So they entered the market maybe 1.5 to 2 years ago. So they were the first company that facilitate tuk-tuk bookings through a digital or mobile platform. So Pass Up do this by using a third-party application that they have simplified quite massively. So without having to enter any additional information, you could essentially order a tuk-tuk to your door. And without having to talk to the driver, if you're grumpy in the morning like I am, and you can just hop on, get to the office, pay, done, right? And then later, about 7 months ago, we have Grab, who is with massive financial backing, joining the market. And ever since they've entered Cambodia, they've been heavily subsidizing my commute to work with really steep discount in an effort to acquire users. So the competition between Grab and Pass Up are quite interesting. When Grab first entered Cambodia, we thought that the little guy Pass Up might just die off or being eaten up by this big giant guy. But what we see today is that the competition is still fierce, so they're still competing head to head. So what this might demonstrate is that in Cambodia, in the current digital landscape, it's, you know, if you are a big player, it's also not necessarily that you might win over the competition or the battle. It also raised a question that is very interesting about simplicity in how we develop product. So could a product that is so simple to use, you can do this with just one button, could they win over a competition with a really sophisticated competitor? Now let's move from transport to entertainment. We have Zoë Cambodia here, which is a platform that hosts entertainment content such as movie and shorts in a really highly localized platform. What's very interesting about Zoë is that they're not only just a distribution platform, but they're also a big driver in the content production industry, in the local content production industry. And they've done this by working very closely with the local actors in the fashion industry in Cambodia. So what we have here are 3 players, all at different stages. We've got Netflix, who is a global player. We've got iFlick, who's a regional player, and Zoë Cambodia, who's the local guy. And in this scenario, all 3 could coexist. And we think that Zoë is able to do that because they've crafted a niche for themselves. But in the future, the question arises where what kind of dynamic would require for these three to still continue to exist together. And we don't have an answer for that, but we don't need one at the moment. Now let's move to employment. We have a very, very exciting product called Bong Pet. So Bong Pet facilitate or find job opportunity for low-skill, entry-level Cambodians. They started by introducing a very simple service, which is an automated phone call through IVR technology. And they've done that because they wanted to reach out to their demographics, with the assumption that low-income Cambodians might not have speedy adoptions of technology or internet-enabled solutions. But through Bong Pet, we learned that digital connectivity in Cambodian has actually been very, very fast, even among low-income Cambodians, to the point where this IVR technology might not be longer relevant for the demographic they're trying to serve. So in response, Bong Pet have added additional features to their service offering, including Facebook messages, which many, many of us are using, and also a web portal where you can go find job opportunity in Khmer language. So Bong Pet is a perfect example of how fast digital adoption is in Cambodia. It's also a perfect example of how we can create a digital technology that is reaching the bottom of the pyramid. Want to switch?
Cool. So given all the gaps and opportunities that Pinkie has mentioned, what we believe is really, really exciting for the market right now is, given that the social and financial context is where it is, given we're as early as we are in our sort of digital journey, why do we think now is a great time to kind of come to Cambodia and engage in this market? First thing is around support programs. So as you can see, we all know co-working is kind of flavor of the year, if not flavor of the decade for real estate. But you can see the amount of mushrooming of both support programs and innovation hubs that you can see on the left side. This, by the way, is already 2 years old. So we've probably already added a whole bunch of other bubbles to this chart by now. Equally, in terms of events, whether it be pitching events, we now have all the startup weekends, all the standard bar camps that you would imagine. It is literally every week there is new stuff for us, which 3 years ago absolutely wasn't the case. Maybe once a quarter you'd have a great big tech event. Now it's weekly, just the same as any other developed market kind of in the region. On the public sector side also, we're now seeing a lot more support for the sector, which is really exciting. So both through a couple of channels. Firstly, academia. We do have more and more technical academic programs coming online that are both entrepreneurship and startup driven, including a whole new institution which was set up 3 years ago. Equally, in terms of role modeling, which I think is a pretty big theme around kind of driving the tech sector, we have a couple of national ICT awards, and particularly the Women in Tech Awards, which obviously we are very excited about personally, both supported by the ministry. So I think this is all to say that kind of all the stakeholders in our system are kind of pointing in the right direction and really excited about the momentum that we're building. But the real reason that I think Cambodia is super exciting is because of the people. Now, obviously, this is a tiny, tiny segment of our population, but it's truly, truly sort of representative of our demographic. Everyone you see here are the people who are not only driving the the tech transformation, but also the economic transformation. In a sense that you will see there are probably about half a dozen CEOs on that page, and they are all not particularly old. They're all well under 35, and this isn't just a kind of slice that we've picked up, but I don't think in the time that I've been there, I very rarely meet CEOs who are over the age of 45, of whether they're large MNCs or local corp as well. So this is truly, truly a young, bright population. When you couple the people with an economy that's so open, where capital flows are easy, where the government is really sort of supportive of the tech sector, it makes it a really exciting place for people like me who have no kind of family roots or no other reason to be in Cambodia, but to be operating in this market. So we have no unicorns to speak of yet, although we have quite a few candidates for them at the moment. So all that leaves me to say is just invite you guys to come to Cambodia if you haven't been already. Come build unicorns with us, and I hope find some unicorns at the same time. Raintree is always open to kind of building bridges between our ASEAN kind of regional partners and elsewhere globally in terms of kind of spurring our digital economy. You know, we can't be an island. We are talking about tech. There are no geographical boundaries. So do please come and engage with us and come and engage with the Cambodian delegation. So that just leaves me to invite you guys for any questions that you have on Cambodia or otherwise. Come say hi to us.